back. I now invite Dr. Durga, faculty in the Department of Anatomy, to introduce Ms. Evangeline Christie, our speaker for the next session.
Thank you. A very good afternoon to all delegates, senior faculty and invitees for this workshop on essential of molecular biology techniques for clinicians. I, Dr. G. Durga Devi, Associate Professor of Anatomy, take immense pleasure in welcoming and introducing our next speaker for the day, Madam Evangeline Christie, who will be enlightening us on the topic basis of primer design. Madam Evangeline Christie has completed her Masters in Biotechnology from Women's Christian College and Masters in Philosophy in Biotechnology MPhil from Bharatidasan University. Currently, she's pursuing her PhD from Sri Ramachandra Institute of Higher Education and Research. She has vast experience in the field of molecular biology, biochemistry, microbiology, and bioinformatics, and has worked in the past in reputed centers like the MV Hospital for Diabetes and Professor M. Vishwanathan Diabetes Research Center. She was awarded the university rank for postgraduate from the University of Madras for the academic year 2003 to 2005 and the Best Student Award from WCC. We are extremely pleased and privileged to have you today, Madam, as our guest speaker. Over to you, Madam. Thank you.
Screen share கொடுப்போமா? Screen share கொடுத்துருவா. Screen share கொடுத்துருவா. PowerPoint show ஆகல அதனால. இப்படி பண்ணிக்கோங்க. ஷோ ஆகும். விசிபிள் ஆகணும். ஓகே.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for your kind introduction about me. So myself, Evangeline, and the topic for today's presentation is PCR primer design guidelines. So the contents will be including the introduction to PCR in a very brief manner, primer design guidelines, primers for PCR, primer selection variables, features to avoid, primer designing using bioinformatic tools. Hope I'm audible to everyone. All right. So, I introduce great bombastic biochemist, Mr. Dr. Carey Mullis, who is the man behind the technique. So to start up with, the PCR, the polymerase chain reaction. So began with as he was traveling from a Bay Area to this cabin, a blow of lightning flashed his mind with an idea pinpointing that a particular stretch of DNA can be enormously synthesized to replicate itself into multiple copies. So that is where the entire idea began up with, and he believed that this technique could be will be available and it will spread to every biological lab, and he will become famous one day and he will be awarded the Nobel Prize. And the same he received the same in the year 1993, where the committee were honored him with the Nobel Prize winner for chemistry. So way to now the present scenario. So everybody is like every public, so it is just a flash into every public's mind. Everybody is aware of the technique, this 3-letter word, the PCR, which has become the basis for the common most gold standard technique test for the COVID the SARS-CoV-2 coronavirus. So this technique is a most well-known technique. It's an in vitro technique amplifying DNA, where you can like produce millions of copies in a short time, and it's a most rapid and a robust technique. It's very highly sensitive technique. So when you talk about the whole genomic DNA, so there are so many informations. It's just stacked with lot of informations in it, and definitely to pick out a particular property of a particular, or to analyze the functionality of a particular stretch of DNA is really a tricky and the most challenging way to everybody who's interested in the genomic research. So there comes the role of this PCR, where using thermocycler, you can actually synthesize like a small stretch of DNA fragment can be actually multiplied into millions of copies. So why is this amplification required? So it has a very, very broad spectrum of applications. It's not only restricted to the only a pathogen diagnosis or a disease diagnostic test. It has got a very broad range of applications, like genome research, or be it disease diagnosis, or for when you come for the designing of a particular drug, or be it in a forensic science, food safety and monitoring, and for pathogen diagnosis. It's an umpteen application where like PCR find its significance. So PCR, polymerase chain reaction. So it's not so its implications are the DNA polymerase, which is used for the replication of the target DNA sequences. And it is a chain reaction because you have the replication happening, the reaction happening in a repeated way. So by this, millions of copies can be generated inside a small tube, and the same type of chemistry that cell uses to copy the DNA. So DNA replication, how it is happening inside a cell. So you have it's a machinery that is, it's a big machinery system that is involved in the replication of DNA inside a cell. So you have the DNA helicase unwinding the duplex double-stranded DNA, and you have the DNA polymerase adding the nucleotides to the complementary, generating the complementary strand. And again, you have the rewinding by the ligases, and that is how you have the replication happening inside a cell. So you have to mimic the similar kind of reaction inside a small tube. So the requirements are the same, except for the for denaturation of the, or like unwinding of the duplex DNA, we will be employing a physical parameter instead of an enzymatic application. So talking about the components of PCR reaction. So PCR reaction requires a primer, which helps in the synthesis of the nucleotide strands. You should have your desired gene of interest. You should have the nucleotides, the A, G, C, T nucleotides needs to be given, and you should have the Taq DNA polymerase for the amplification process. And everything happens inside a 4-degree Celsius setup, and it will be the reaction mix will be prepared. I think everything will be discussed in detail in the following session. And this is the overall reaction of the PCR. So PCR, it involves the denaturation, annealing, extension. So these are the three main things that's happened inside the machine. So denaturation is nothing but the temperature is increased to separate the DNA strands, wherein annealing, the temperature is decreased to allow the primers to base pair to complementary DNA template. Extension happens, polymerase extends primer to form the nascent DNA strand. So it is exponentially amplified, where you can calculate the copies generated by the formula 2 to the power n, where n denotes the number of cycles. So this is the overall reaction that happens inside the thermocycler. Next, the topic to primers. So as I told, the whole genomic DNA does not get amplified here. So we are interested in only a particular fragment of DNA. So that is where we need the help of these primers. So PCR does not copy all of the DNA in the samples. It can only amplify a very specific sequence of genetic code from a target DNA, and which are targeted by the PCR primers. It does require the knowledge of some DNA sequence information, which plans a fragment of DNA, which has to be amplified. So this is how the primers actually enrolls itself in the amplification process. So you have two sets of primers. One is the forward primer and the other one is a reverse primer. So the forward primer will be coded from the 5' to the 3' end, and the reverse primer will be amplifying from the 3' to the 5' end. So so the unwinding of the strands takes place in the denaturation process, and the addition of the nucleotides begins in the annealing process. So where the addition of the primers to the unwound strand will happen at the 3' hydroxyl end. The primers can only attach itself to the 3' end of the target DNA strands. So there are certain parameters that is required when you go for your primer designing. So the parameters includes the length, the GC content, the melting temperature, the hairpin loops and self-dimerization, and the cross dimerization. So length of the primer. So primer is nothing but is a very short oligonucleotide fragment, which helps in the synthesis of the complementary strand. So while talking about the length of the primer, so it should not be very small or it should neither be very large also. So a size between an 18 to 22 base pair is ideally preferred for as a length of the primer. So what happens when you have a longer primer? When you go for a primer which is actually very long, so it actually bothers your amplification process. It may become inefficient. It may show the inefficient annealing, and the amplification may become very difficult when you go for a longer stretch of primers. When we use two short primers, so two short primers which actually result in a non-specific binding and non-specific amplification. Short fragment size in the sense like less than 16 base pair or up to 16 base pair size, where you can find it can be attached to various regions ending up in non-specific amplifications, which can actually affect the efficiency of the amplification. So two long primers, again, it is it cannot it cannot effectively amplify the targeted sequence. So an optimum length of a primer should be is preferred to be in between 18 and 22 base pair length. So PCR. So when you talk about the chain reaction, so I mentioned that there is a three essential steps that are involved in the reaction. So one is a denaturation, next is the annealing, and next comes your elongation. So denaturation, I say, so you employ a physical parameter to unwind your duplex strands. So there comes the application of heat. So this is the entire basis for the PCR reaction to happen. Heat plays a very, very major role, and that is what is going to make your amplification in a very successful way. So the effect of temperature is a very, very important parameter that needs to be kept when you are going for designing an efficient primer. So this temperature, okay, where the unwinding of the strands takes place is called as a melting temperature, which is represented as Tm. So this is going to be an important parameter while you are designing the primer for your targeted DNA sequence. So this is a one. So melting temperature. So there is a lot of parameters again that needs to be considered when you're going for an for determining the melting temperature of the particular primer. So this is the one that is going to make the primer efficiently functionable. So the melting temperature, so this is how it happens. So denaturation. So I was talking about the denaturation. So a very high temperature is actually employed so the initial denaturation takes place at a temperature of 98 degrees Celsius, where it results in the unwinding of the duplex DNA strands. So again, an initial denaturation takes place. Again, the denaturation followed up at 95 degrees Celsius, and again the annealing comes. So this helps in the unwinding of the strands at a high temperature. So the stability of the duplex strand is always like is highly influenced with the melting temperature of the primer. So higher the TM, the higher the stability is going to be. So the lower the TM, so the lower the stability is going to be. So at higher temperature, what happens? So the hydrogen bonds break actually. So this is what happens here. So this is a double stranded duplex strand. So at a very high temperature, you have the breaking of the duplex strands. So almost like, so denaturation starts. So it's always a binding. So when you talk about the structure of a DNA, so it is the adenine pairing with a double bond with a thymine, and guanine pairing with cytosine with a triple hydrogen bond. So this is the structure of the DNA and the denaturation starts. So so AT will have a less comparatively stronger bonding than that of a GC, because AT is a double bonded hydrogen, whereas GC is a triple bonded hydrogen. So so the first unwinding takes place at the AT rich region because of the less strength, and later it results in the unwinding of the GC rich region. So as the temperature decreases, you have the renaturation happening, where the unbound strands will again rejoin and becomes the duplex strand. So in short, you can say that the heat denaturation of DNA is called the melting. So so you cannot have anything or you cannot have any range of, there is a range that needs to be maintained to design an optimal melting temperature, which has to be determined, and there is a calculation for it. So there are so many kinetics when I talk about heat. So when you talk about heat, there are so many kinetics that actually comes into play. And so generally we use a formula, a simple formula, to calculate the melting temperature of a particular primer. So ideally speaking, the temperature, melting temperature should be good somewhere when it lies between 55 to 65 degrees Celsius, and both primers should have similar melting temperature. So they should not have there should not be much variation. So two primers involved, one will be the forward primer and one will be the reverse primer. So both these primers should not have a difference more than that of more than 3 degrees Celsius. So it should be very close. If the forward primers falls, say like the forward primers falls like 54 degrees Celsius, the reverse primer should be somewhere like 56 degrees, 57 degrees. So no two primers should be like should have a very big variation. One should be like 55 and the other should be like 62. No, that is not preferred. So an ideal range of 55 to 65 degrees with a difference not more than 2 to 3 degrees Celsius is actually allowed. So you have a formula to calculate the melting temperature of the primer. So it's a simple formula where it says that 4 into G plus C plus 2 into A plus T will give you the melting temperature of the particular primer. Say for example, I've taken a sequence here. So this is a primer sequence, one primer sequence, which is starting from the 5' to the 3'. So how is the calculation goes up with? It's like you have to count the G. So there are 5 Gs in the sequence, and there are 4 Cs in the sequence, and there are 5 A in the sequence, and there are 4 Ts in the sequence. So when you sum up, an arithmetic calculation is followed, which gives a melting temperature of 54 degrees Celsius. So that is how the melting temperature is actually calculated. So I wanted you to perform a simple test, like I've given a sequence. If you want to try calculating the melting temperature of the sequence, the participants can go ahead and calculate and can give me the answer. Where can I see? Okay, I've received a question to show the calculation again. So I'm just showing the other slide which helps you in calculating it. So this is the formula to calculate the melting temperature. So your melting temperature should goes with 4 into G plus C and plus 2 into A plus T. So you have this, this is the primer sequence. Okay, this is the short primer. I think it's a 19 or 20 base pair sequence. And so here it is, so you have to count the number of Gs here. So you have to count the number of G. So G, how many Gs you have here? So 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5. So substitute 5 in the place of G. And C, you have 4 Cs here. So you have to substitute 4 Cs. And again, you have the TA, you have 5 As here. And T, you have 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 T's are here. So just do an arithmetic calculation, like 4 into 5 plus 4 plus 2 into 5 plus 4. So that makes a temperature of 54 degrees Celsius, which is an ideal melting temperature for this particular primer, which we have designed. Hope you will understand it. And I wanted you guys to go ahead and calculate the melting temperature for this sequence, which I'm showing you right now, using the formula, the same formula. One is coming with the I'm getting a lot of right answers in the chat box. So 62 degrees Celsius is the answer. So hope you guys have understood. I'm just moving on to the next parameter. GC content. Okay, the next parameter, important parameter you have to keep in mind when you're designing your primers is your GC content. So GC is a guanine and the cytosine residues that is present in the DNA structure. So I told you like there is a triple bonding between the guanine and the cytosine, and there is a double bonding between the adenine and the thymine. So why GC content is more significant? As I said you, it's because of the triple bonding nature that is existing between the guanine and the cytosine, which again influences the stability of the duplex DNA. More the hydrogen bonds, more the duplex bond is much stable and is much stronger. So again, the melting temperature is now actually influenced by the GC content of a particular stretch of primer. So TM, I told you, is melting temperatures dependent upon the GC content of the DNA. So GC content plays a very, very important role in the stability of your primer also, because primer, it should not be a weak primer. So the strength of the primer depends upon the GC content in it. So you should have an ideal GC content for the primer to be highly stable. So this is how it is. So higher the stability, higher the GC content, higher temperature, so more heat is required to denature. So that is why you give an initial denaturation happens at a very, very high temperature of that of a 98 degree Celsius, followed by a denaturation at 95 degrees Celsius. So the entire the reaction process, the mixture, the how to add about the ingredients of the PCR will be in detail, will be covered by the next session. That's the reason I'm not explaining any of the components that is involved in the PCR. So so let us see one important component, the PCR primer design alone in this session. So this is how it is. So the stability matters with the high GC content. So so what is the ideal GC content? So is there a value for it? Yes, you have a value for it. So a GC content of a primer sequence will be ideal if you have it at a range of 40% to 60%. So this is the best GC content that a primer should have. So the stability of the primers is actually good. So again, I told you the adenine and the thymine has 2 hydrogen bonds, whereas the guanosine has 3 hydrogen bonds. So obviously, so denaturation is more easily, whereas denaturation is not that easily when it comes with the guanine and the cytosine bonding. So ideally, a GC content of like 40 to 60% is preferred while you're designing your primers. Now let's talk about the GC clamp. So this is one another parameter. So clamp, you use it to join to 2 different substances, isn't it? So you have similarly you have a clamp when you have to be mindful of a clamp when you're designing your primer. So what is this GC clamp again? So it is nothing but is the presence of a guanine or a cytosine bases within the last 5 bases from the 3' end. So this is the 3' end of the primer, and you can see that there should be the presence of either 1 or 2, either a guanine or a cytosine residue at the end of the last 5 bases. So it should not, again, there's a note you have to keep it in mind. You should not have more than 2 Gs or more than 2 Cs. So ideally, you should have at least 1 or 2 is allowed. So which again marks the stability of the primer. So so it is very important to note this feature also. So what is the reason behind it? So it can efficiently help to improve the specificity of the primer binding to the template. So your primer needs to, it's a very, very short oligonucleotide sequence. Suppose you have a target range, say you have a target, your desired gene of interest is going to be somewhere like 1,000 base pair product, and you design a primer of only 20 nucleotide base pair length. So imagine, so this 20 nucleotide base pair has to like walk along and it has to synthesize the strand, and that is how the amplification happens in each and every cycle of the PCR. So the stability of this 20 nucleotide base pair length is very, very important, and each and every parameter what I'm discussing now is going to mark a good primer. So this efficiently, this 20 base pair should bind in the template strand. So you should have at least like 1 or 2 guanine or cytosine residue at the end of the 3' end. At least at the last 5 bases should have at least 1 or 2 guanine residue for efficient binding of your primer. Again, this is required. So when there is an efficient binding of the primer in the template, efficient extension, efficient synthesis of the template strand or your target's DNA also happens in a good way. So this is all about GC clamp. So GC clamp, so this is how it gets actually. So you should have a primer which should go for like the 3' end. You have the addition of the primer at the for the template strand. So this is the first picture. You find that the extension by the polymerase happens in a very good way. So no matter when you have it at the 3' end also, sometime if there is a missing of the guanine cytosine residue, you can sometime happen, sometime it works well with the polymerase, it can efficiently amplify the sequence. But when you see the 5' and you see here, so when there is no guanine or cytosine, then the amplification is going to be really bothered and there cannot be an efficient extension happening up. So this is the significance of your GC clamp. So the presence of G or C residue at the last 5 bases toward the end is very, very important in the primer design. So what are things you need to avoid? So you should be mindful. So now, so long we were talking about the consideration, like the melting temperature, the heat parameter, the bonding parameters that exist between the guanine and the cytosine. So these are the parameters that you have to be mindful of, and while you're designing your primers. And there are certain reasons also. There are so many other factors that you should be really mindful of, where these are the don'ts. So you should be mindful of something called hairpin, self-dimer, primer dimers, runs, and the repeats when you are designing your primer. Hairpin. So hairpin, everybody knows what a hairpin is. So I think everybody knows what is this hairpin loop inside a duplex DNA strand. So this is nothing but it's a kind of a stop signal that actually hinders. So when it takes, so with the DNA is a stretch of fragment, a duplex strand. So an unwinding where you have the complementary bases added to the template, and thereby your nascent strand is synthesized. So unless and otherwise it receives a stop signal, you will not have the polymerase will keep on be adding the nucleotides. Suppose in case if it happens, the DNA polymerase encounters a hindrance, it will interfere the amplification process, and will terminate the process also. So this, you should be mind of this loop called the hairpin loop, which is a bend that is actually happen. So when there is a possibility of this hairpin loop happening inside a template strand, while there is a synthesis or while there's an amplification happening. So it is by the intramolecular interaction within the primer. So when there is an intramolecular interaction that is happening between the sense strand and the antisense strand, or within the sense strand or within the antisense strand, then there is a possibility of this loop formation where it will bother the DNA polymerase, and it will stop the DNA polymerase to add the nucleotides, and it will affect the reaction. So this should not happen at all. So you should be very careful when you are designing a primer. So when there is a possibility, so I told you the primer is only a very small stretch of DNA. So you should be careful of the sequences or the residues that are involved in the primer designing. So you should not have it. So this is what will happen when you have. So here is a sequence, okay, the GGG, ATT, CC, AGG, AT, CT, AT. So this is the primer sequences. You can see here in case this, when there is a synthesis happening. So the 5' to 3'. So 3' to 5'. So what's happening here? Can you see it is base pairing within itself? The complementary base pairing is happening within the repeat. So this is when a hairpin loop is formed. And once a hairpin loop is formed, you will not have the amplification happening anymore. So this will stop your amplification reaction. So when you are designing a primer, you should consider the repeats that are present in the sequences. So so again, how can I know whether there will be a hairpin loop formation in this particular sequences or no? Is there any help for me? Yes, we have a lot of online tools available for us to determine to tell us the quality of a good primer is, which I will explain you in the later slides. Now, next is the self-dimer. So self-dimer is nothing but, again, I told you, this is also one important hindrance that happens when you are, if you are not designing a good primer. So this is nothing but an intermolecular interaction that happens between the two same sense primers. So again, within the sense strand itself, you have the primer binding among itself. And what happens when the primer is binding among itself? So you have a dimer that is formed, which will again stop the amplification to happen further. So this is the self dimer, and this is primer dimer. Primer dimer is nothing but it is two primers hybridizing with each other when there is a string of complementary bases that's available in the sequence. So this is primer dimer. So when it's happening within the sense strand, then that makes a self dimer. When it's happening in the antisense strand within the between the sense and the answer, it becomes a cross dimer. So this is the primer dimers, which is a very, very normal thing, like maybe we actually encounter when you're designing your primers. So they are homologous and they adversely affect the efficiency of the PCR. You should not have. Sometimes you can see, like while you're performing your PCR reaction, You can see no amplification of your targeted DNA, only a gel consisting of primer dimers. So that shows a very bad primer design, and that shows a very bad amplification also has happened. So these are the at the technical end while you're performing the experiment. All these things needs to be kept in mind for us to perform the very good experiment. So runs. So runs, I say, is nothing but the repeats. So the repeats that's available. So you should not have the same repeat like a long stretch containing a repeated number of C's or a repeated number of A's or repeated number of T's or repeated number of G's. So you should keep all these things in mind when you are designing a primer. So it can definitely will not be suiting your PCR reaction if the repeat is going to be high, or maximum of a repeat of a 4 base pair is actually permitted while you're designing a primer, not more than 4. It is going to result either in a happen loop formation or again in the dimer formations, which is not good for the amplification. And this is how we will be designing PCR primers. Okay, so just pay attention here. So you have the target sequences. So this is a very long, it's a one particular stretch of DNA. Okay, running from the 5' to 3' end. So this is the target sequences that needs to be amplified. So now again, the complementary sequences for this target sequences is highlighted in red. It's running from the 3' to the 5' end. All right. So now I'm going to design a primer out of these two sequences. So, and I believe that the basic concept in the hypothesis is Obel hypothesis, adenine pairing with thymine and guanine pairing with cytosine. A pairs with T and G pairs with C. And there's a double bond between the adenine and the thymine, and there is a triple bond between the guanine and the cytosine. Hope that is clear. And that is how the synthesis happens. So adenine pairs with thymine, and you can see T pairing with A, G pairing with C, G pairing with C. So this is how the complementary strand will be synthesized. So this is how the nucleotide binding happens between the duplex DNA strands. So now I'm going to design a primer. So it's a very random way. So now what I'm going to do is I can leave from a few primers from the 5' end. I can take a stretch of 20 base pairs from this end. That is from the 5' to the 3', which will act as my forward primer. So the primer which is running from 5' to 3' will be the forward primer, and the primer which is running from the 3' to 5' end will be your reverse primer. So reverse primer is picked from the complementary strand, whereas the forward primer is picked from the target strand. So this is how I have taken a random of 20 nucleotide base pair long, and these are the two primers. So you can see so I told you primers will bind to the template strand at the 3' end, not at a 5' end. No primer can bind at the 5' end. It can only bind to the 3' hydroxyl end of your template strand. So you can see that your primer is binding at the 3' end of your hydroxyl strands. Right? So this is the region that needs to be amplified, and that is how your reaction takes place. You can see the dotted lines where the synthesis will happen. So it keeps on, DNA Taq polymerase will be keeping on adding the nucleotides, and you'll have the continuous synthesis of your nascent strands happening in the complementary way. So this is the boxed region is the amplified region or the targeted region that needs to be amplified. So primers always will be written as from the 5' to the 3' end. So the forward primer and the reverse primer. So primer can only attach to the 3' hydroxyl end of your template strand. So this is how the primers will be designed for a known sequences. So these are the characteristics I would like to sum up. So the primer should be a 22 base, good enough to be unique, targeting a particular gene of interest. So 40 to 60% GC content is preferred. A balanced distribution of guanine and cytosine and adenine and thymine should be present. So a sequence, just because it has a very good bonding efficiency, you cannot have only G or C throughout your primer. So you should have a balanced distribution of both. So again, the temperature, that melting temperature that is allowed in helping in annealing should range between 55 to 65 degrees Celsius. So primer pairs should have similar melting temperatures. The forward and the reverse primers, not much difference should be noted. A temperature difference of 2 to 3 degrees Celsius is allowed, and there should not be any sequence complementarity. So you should be mindful of the repeats that is present in your primer sequence, and especially at the 3' end. Hope I'm clear. And moving on to the online tool for primer designing. Can I continue or discuss? Okay. So as I told you, there are so many do's and don'ts that you need to keep it in mind when as you're designing your primers. So there manually certain things are possible. Like when I pick up sequences, I can virtually see like how many adenine is present, how many thymines is present, how many guanine and cytosine present. Is there a possibility I can design the complementary base pairing, and I can actually I can draw it, I can do it virtually also, like manually also, when as I'm designing, whether there is a possibility of a hairpin loop formation, whether there's a possibility of the dimer happening. So in such in cases it can be correct. And you also have another suite. There is a bioinformatics suite that's available, providing a lot of options for us to design primers. There are so many good tools that is available, and I would like to discuss very few tools that is which I use most often, which used to give me good results. So these are some of the tools that's available in the online. So the Primer 3, the Gene Fisher, Primer 3 Plus, Primer Blast, MFE primers, and you have certain tools very specifically determining the physical parameters of a primer. Like how you say, I told you it's a heat is what that matters, isn't it? That's a basis for your entire PCR, and as for you designing your primers as such. So you have specialized tool to determine how good is the stem loop formation or the hairpin or dimerization. What is the possibility of the dimerization to happen? How you can calculate the delta G factor, which is the heat factor. So all these kind of physical parameters also can be efficiently calculated by using tools like oligoanalyzer, oligo calculation tools, and oligo evaluators. So these are some of the tools like mostly or widely used, and these tools are much user friendly. So there is an algorithm, there's a pattern which you need to follow. There's a stepwise pattern which you need to follow while you're going for designing your primers using the online tools. So you got to input your DNA sequence first. That is the first thing that is required. So you need to, the DNA sequence informations can be retrieved from the NCBI databases. If you're working on a plant genome, you can get the informations from the Ensemble plant databases. So you can, and the information has to be in the FASTA format. It's preferably the FASTA format. So that is how you have to input your DNA sequences, and input the start and end of the central region. So you have to be, suppose like I told you, like the PCR is not going to amplify your whole genome. So it is going to amplify only your gene of interest. A particular stretch of DNA is our interest. So I should give the start and the end. Suppose I have a genome, suppose I have a gene of I come up with gene X. Okay, you take it as a gene X where it is actually 6,500 base pair long, but I have a coding region somewhere in between, like 500 to 4,000 base pair. So I can design my primer range it from 400 to the 5,000 base pair. So I can input the start and the region, which I mean is the start and the stop region, where I would like to design the particular fragment of primers from. So input the length of the primer. So what is your desired length? So length of the primer, again, I have explained in detail why length of the primer is very, very important. If it's going to be a long primer, it's going to bother your amplification. If it's a short primer, it's going to bind in so many places, and by ending up in non-specific products, which is a bad sign for a amplification reaction. So you can input your length. So 18 to 22 bases or 18 to 20 base pairs is actually ideal. So 18 base pair, mostly will stick up onto 18 base pairs. We do use long primers. In case when you're going for a sequencing, when you want to characterize your gene, which has not been sequenced at all. So if it is an unknown region, so in that cases, to pull out the flanking regions also will be included, and we'll be going for long stretch of primers also. So usually, and it involves special PCR techniques like thermal asymmetric PCR, or an RAGE kind of a PCR, or a genome walking kind of a PCR. Like PCR, there are, again, it's not only one type, there are so many types in a PCR, and all these things will be detailedly explained in the following session. So that's a reason I'm not explaining all those. So you can also go for a long length primers, but most of the cases it's not required. When it is a length of 18 to 20 base pair is ideal. Again, the melting temperature is 55 to 65 degrees Celsius is ideal for designing your primer. So GC content should be somewhere 45 to 50% is preferable. So you should not have the hairpin and the self dimerization happening. No, there should not be any cross dimerization. And from this lot, you can take up your primers of interest. So this is how the suit looks like. So I would like to discuss about one particular suit, like which is predominantly used for designing a primers. It's a most reliable suit which everybody prefers, and I actually prefer going for this rather going with the primer 3. So primer pick primers from the primer blast from the NCBI suit is widely used and is a very user friendly, and you can have a very good and reliable primers coming out from this particular bioinformatics suit. So this is how is a NCBI suit. It opens up. So that's a window. So you have you can find it at the right hand side of your sequences. You have an option called pick primers. You can click onto that and a window will be open like this. So this is the opening window for your primer blast. So you have primers for target 1 template, primers common for all. So this is how it goes up with. So this is the place. So this is the bar where you can enter you can enter if you're familiar with the accession of your gene of interest, you can just enter the accession code of it, or preferably I told you a FASTA sequence input is always preferred for any kind of bioinformatic retrieval informations. So primer blast also demands that, so you can input your sequence in the FASTA base in the space provided here. So again, I told you can prefer the range. I told you can give a start and a stop number. So you can give the numbers actually if you want to forward primer from which count, which region to which region. So suppose you can have when you talk about a eukaryotic gene, you will have an interference of so many introns. So if I prefer, I need to amplify the particular exon region, I can sort out my exon region and I can give only that region here. So I can give all these informations in this region provided here, from where should my forward primer should amplify from and where should my reverse primer amplify from. So that is the information I need to give here. So again, the beneath it, you can find that there is a lot of tabs available for the primer parameters. So you can have your desired product. So how much should be my product range of my target sequence should be. So I can allocate a number. So default setting is there. So default settings will be based on the ideal conditions. In case if I want to know, suppose I want to know have my product size somewhere between 500 to 1000 base pair, I can vary my options here. I can vary my options in the slots provided here. I can vary it. So I can enter the product size, desired product size, which I wanted from. Again, at the melting temperature also, I can vary the range, the minimum optimal temperature and the maximum temperature. So what is the minimum temperature you would like to enter? What's the optimum temperature you prefer and a maximum temperature? So I gave you a formula to calculate, basic formula to calculate it. And you can give the particular range of the preferred temperatures for your as a melting temperature for the primer. So this is how the FASTA sequence will be inputted, and you can choose it. You can just input your parameters of interest, and you can just at the end of the screen you can find run. Just click on the run and you can wait for the results. In no time, it is going to pull up all the efficient possible primers that are present in the input sequences. So it will give you a choice. So it's not only one primer that's going to come up. It actually gives you a choice where you need to pick up like which one actually suits you. So it will give you a random choice of like, depending upon the length, it can give you a choice of like maximum 10. That's a choice it usually gives up. So this is how it will be. So you will have the forward primer. You'll have the reverse primer. You have all these informations of the primer here. So this is the primer pair 1. Okay, so this is the primer pair. Sequence is directed from 5' to 3' end. So the primer pair, the product length is 188. So the default setting had the information of 70 to 1000 base pair of product length. So it is giving me a product length of 188. So it is telling me where it's bind. So forwards primer will always bound itself to the plus strand, and reverse will always get itself bound to the minus strand. So the length of the primer, it is given as 20 and 20 for each of the primers. So I the start and the stop. So it is starting those 1627 to 1646. So you can see the reverse primer running from 1814 to 1795. So ideal temperatures, the melting temperature for both is 60.04 for the forward primer, 59.97 for the reverse primer. It has given me this calculated the GC content also, like 55% is GC and 55% is GC in both the forward and the reverse primer. Self-complementarity, there's a score. So bioinformatics always has a lot of arithmetic calculations encoded in it. So based on the program on which it is built, it is giving me a self-complementary score of 4 and 7 for each. So an ideal score of less than 8 is preferred for a good primer. So 3' complementarities also should be less than 8. So it's giving me a score of 3.00, 3.00. So you can have like this. So you have primer 2 also. So you have given a choice of primers here. Different choice, 10 different choices of primers. So you can select whichever is actually suiting you. Suppose I need a product say range of like 500 to 1000 base pair, and I can go for this primer 2, which is oh no, it's not that. So I can go for primer 3, which is like 973 base pair product length. It is again having a good GC content. Melting temperature is also good. And there is a self-complementary also is falling between the range. So I can prefer this primer if I'm interested. So that's how your pick primer from the blast suite works. So this is one another tool for characterizing your physical parameters. So oligo analyzer, you have so many versions in it, say 3.1, 3.2 as the latest version. So this will predict the secondary structure predictions, like what is the possibility of your primer, dimer, the stem loop formations, and all those informations will be in detail based on the kinetic working. So you can input, this is how your oligo analyzer will work. The windows look like, and you can input your primer sequence. You can input your primer sequences, and you can just hit on the run, analyze. So this is going to, I can select which I would like to examine, like hairpin, cell timer, heterodimer. I can also like cross match it with the cross match the results with the NCBI blast. So it gives me a lot of options here. So I can make my choice from out of the options given here. So this is how it is. So once I click on analyze, it's going to give me the result in another window. So this is the sequence, the length, the GC content, melting temperature, and everything. The target type is DNA. What's the concentration, the salt concentrations, everything is mentioned here. So how should I select now? So it will give me a structure. Suppose I wanted to analyze the hairpin loop formation in this. So when I click on the hairpin loop, which I showed in the welcome window, so it will show me a result like this. So a value, I told you there's a cutoff range. So a value of which is actually like less than -3 kilocalories per mole is actually preferred, which is the Gibbs free energy. So this is actually preferred. So delta G should be weaker for more positive. So for self dimers and heterodimers, a value of -6 is actually preferred. So this has a, you can see here how the stem loop is actually formed, the dimers are actually formed. So the inputted sequence cannot be an ideal primer. So this is how I'll infer with the results whether the quality of the primer which I have actually designed is going to hold good for my is going to hold good to amplify my gene of interest. I hope I'm clear with this, and I would like you to show an online demonstration, like how you can go and use the primer blast suite for designing your primers. No questions as such. Wait. Okay. All right. So before demonstration, is there any doubt so far? I would like to listen from you guys in case if there's any doubts so far. You can just post your questions in the chat box or in the question answer box. Hope it's clearly understood.
What will be the ideal target size?
Because it would be very easy. I wanted you guys to perform along with me as I'm doing the demonstration. So I have a question in the box here. What will be the ideal target size? So ideal target size depends upon the gene of interest which you are actually wanted to amplify. So that is how it is. Suppose I have a base pair length. So I may talk about the efficiency of the primer. So the pulling of the target sequence is totally depend upon the primers which you design. All right. So if I want a fragment length of say 900 to 1000 base pair, I can give it as a choice. And the primers which can pull, which has the efficiency to pull a range of like 900 to 1000 only will be has to be selected, and that needs to be synthesized. And when I give it in the reaction, I can get an amplification size of the product which I want. So the size of the target depends upon your gene of interest which you wanted to amplify. If your target gene of interest is 500 base pair long, your product size should be 500 base pair long, and you can run it along with the ladder. So all these things will be explained in your PCR run, the gel pictures, how the band size will be calculated, and you have a marker loaded along with the gel. So you can actually view, it's visualized. It's a visualized bands. You can visualize when it is matching along with a 500 base pair ladder. You can visualize your product of sequence actually amplified with. Chat box again. What is the start and the stop in the primer blast? So this is the start, and the stop in the primer blast is nothing but the region in which your primer is going to bind in your template DNA. So the start region, so it showed like somewhere 1675 to 1695. So that is the ideal region where your primer is going to bind in the template region. So that is the start and the stop in the primer blast. Is it all? Can I go for the demonstration? And I want you all the participants also to to perform as I'm demonstrating to you. So you can open the NCBI suite. You can't use your phone, mobile system. If you have a laptop, if you're sitting in front of a laptop, it's preferable. You can perform along with this. You can view it as well. Okay, you can just go on to the NCBI suite. So this is how the NCBI window looks like. So I can go to all database here. I have to select the nucleotide. So now I'm going to show a demonstration of designing a primer from a plant whole genome the plant actin from the plant Arabidopsis thaliana. So I'm just giving the accession code for that sequence. So this is the accession for the Arabidopsis thaliana actin family protein mRNA sequence. So again, when you're selecting a primer, when you're designing a primer, you have to go for the mRNA sequence. mRNA sequence is preferred. You should not go for a partial CDS or an express sequence tags, or a submitted a cloned sequence is not preferred. It is always preferred to design primers from the mRNA of a particular gene. So this is the sequence which I want my gene of interest, and I would like to design primers from this sequence. So this is the accession of this particular gene. So you can give all the annotation of this gene present here on the in the first few information. All the genetic information, annotation information will be given in the first few lines of your sequences, and you can get you see here. So you can, as in Swana, you can get all the regions as present. So your gene is ranging from it's a 1 to 1407, and this is CDS coding sequences ranging between 243 to 1232, and this is an actin family protein. This is the name of the gene. So this is a product which you get. So this is the actin family protein. So actin is a housekeeping gene, is a housekeeping gene, which is a conserved gene. It's available in almost all the living organisms. So about the genetic information is given here. This is the translated version is also given here, and down is your sequence. So this is your sequence. So it is 1400 and I think it is 1407 base pair length. So now you can see the right hand side, you can see an option called analyze the sequence. If you want to do a blast, you can do blast. You can see pick primers. You can highlight sequence features, find the sequence shown in the genome data and a viewer. So you can go for the option pick primers. You can click on the option pick primer. So this is how your primer blast window will open now, and you can, it's directly from the sequence. So you can input the sequence here. So the accession is like default is carried out, and I can change the parameters here. Say I want a product size between 500 to 1000 base pair. I'm okay with the minimal temperature 57, optimum 60, and maximum of 63 degrees Celsius. I would go with the default. So primers to return. So I've given a choice of 10, so which should be fine. So I can the default setting, so intron length range. So this is all the default. So in case if you have a good knowledge about the target sequence, you can go about with that. If it's not, I don't think this is going to bother your primer designing regions. All right. So it's looking good for me. So I'm just going to show results in a new window and I get primers. So click on the check. It says it's running. You have to wait. It's a very busy suit. Yeah, here we go. So that's the primers the suit has designed for me, and it has given me the options. I think I can get 10 pairs of primers. Okay, so it's perfect. It's perfect. So it has given me the detailed information of the primers. Okay. So I will explain this first. Okay, so you have the primer pair 1. So the forward primer and the reverse primer. See, the see, you can see, if you can find all the product ranges will be between the 500 to 1000 base pair. So you can see now the how much is your target size, what is the ideal size. So I want a size of like my gene of interest lies somewhere between 500 to 1000 base pair. So I've given that, and that would be my ideal target size for my gene of interest. So I can get a product size of the range which I wanted. You can see, you can scroll down and you can see. So this Primapep 1 is having a product length of 589. So there is no self complementarity here. So it's a it's a 3' complementarity. So the GC content is good. So it's falling between the ideal temperature, melting temperature, which I have given. So the range where it starts at the stop. So it is starting somewhere at the beginning of the gene. So it's 125 base pair it starts and 144 it ends. So reverse is somewhere 730, 694. So you can imagine. So the range is going to be like it's going to pull out from somewhere between 1 to 700 base pair. All right, so so this is somewhere at the start of the gene. I can get a product range of 589. So the product, the length of the primer is 20 and 20. So this is how it is. You can see the start and the stop. So there will be a gap of 20 base pairs. You can, the 125 and 144, you can find a gap of 20 base pairs. So somewhere I wanted in between. So I prefer somewhere in between. So I do not want the gene to be amplified at the beginning. So I want it somewhere in the beginning, at somewhere in the middle. I can again choose the primers here. So depending upon the start and the stop range, I can actually go for the thing. So I can refer you. So it's somewhere starting from 226 and it is almost 1031 base pairs. So I will prefer this Primapep 3. So which is again the complementarity scores also is very good. GC content is good. It's falling between the ideal melting temperature range, and the product size looks good. It's 806 base pairs. So my choice of interest will be for this primer. So I will check. Again, the physical parameters, I can select this. I can go to the oligoanalyzer tool or the primer 3 stat tool to check for any hairpin formation, what the salt concentrations, any place interferences, and everything will be analyzed by using the other software. And that is how I'll confirm if all the conditions are favoring, if there is no hairpin formation, there's no primer self dimerization possibilities, then I would prefer, I would go ahead and synthesize these primers, and I will try to pull my gene of interest, getting it efficiently amplified. So this is how we will be using the primer blast for designing primers. If you want, you can try. You can try it for any gene. You can try it for any gene. It's very interesting to learn. You can try, and it's very easy. Hope you guys are trying. In case if you're having any doubts, you can just get it clarified.
Post the questions in the afternoon session.
Yeah.
I'll answer it at the end of the day.
Yeah. So I hope you all are trying. Few of you are trying, and I don't want to take much of your lunchtime. And so any questions, you can post your questions in the chat box available. I am available for the following session also, so you can get it clarified then. And I can answer. Madam, which is the ideal maximum base pair length? So the length of the primer. So I have a question here. So which is the ideal maximum base pair length for designing primers from mRNA to primer blast? So ideal length of a primer. I told you it is good when it is falling between a range of 18 to 22 base pair. That's a perfect range for any sequence, for any gene for that matter. Okay, so that's a so if your primer is going, if your forward and your reverse primer is going to have a range of 20 base pair length, I think that should do. 18 base pair is perfect. So it will be available for the latter session also. You can post your if you have any difficulty in accessing the suit, you can just get it clarified here. Hope you had a good session, and thank you for your patient listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am, for the brainstorming session on primer designing. I'm sure it would have greatly benefited our delegates. Thank you, ma'am. We are now closing the session. As you break for lunch, please join back at 2:30 p.m. using the same link. The post-lunch session will be on PCR and the real-time PCR. Thank you.